to have you here today. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What kind of work do you do?
So I'm currently a lead developer in my company. So it's a company that sells food, frozen food to restaurants and things like that. And I'm handling a team of developers, and we are building some kind of management software for that specific company.
Okay, very cool. And I'm guessing there's some ETL involved.
Yeah, there's some ETL involved. But
right.
I really don't like this word so much, but we'll get there.
Yeah, necessary evil sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
At least we can make it more fun with Node. Cool. Well, let's get started. Take it away.
Sure. So as Dan said, I'm Soyuka. So it's my username online. I'm in fact Antoine Blucher, French, from France. I'm working with Node.js since 2013. With Oracle Database, I'm working for about 2 years, a bit more. And I wanted to work with Oracle and Node.js, but the Node Oracle database module came a bit later, and I immediately started to work with it because I knew it was the right thing for the job. So on my free time, I'm contributing a lot on GitHub. For example, with PM2, it's a process manager for Node.js. API platform, it's a PHP bundle working with Symfony. And I have a bunch of packages too that I have published. Everything is open sourced and MIT licensed.
With 1.5 million downloads a month.
Yeah, last month
wow.
It was that. Yeah, I'm close to 1 million already on the today, but yeah, it's kind of because I worked with PM2 and wrote a bunch of submodules that we use there, and PM2 is really popular. So yeah.
Excellent.
Then my company. So as I told before, it is a company where we sell food, like frozen food or fresh food too. We have 5 warehouses now, about 20 logistics spaces. We have more than 2,500 products. There are about 170 sales representatives. So those kinds of persons are on the field and are selling our products to the restaurants, to customers.
Sure.
And we have about 160 trucks, so that's kind of big.
Yeah, a lot of trucks.
Some vocabulary, because I don't know if everyone is familiar with those, so I will use the word ERP for Enterprise Resource Planning, but it's in fact a big software where a lot of things happen, like from managing the products, from managing the orders to the storage. Then I will talk also about the customer relationship management system, which is the software that our sales representatives are using on the field. And then, of course, DBMS for database management system.
Got it.
Let's get a bit more into the main subject. So we have the company exists for about more than 20 years, I think, and over the years they have Informatic has begun, and they have bought an ERP, so the software that's handling everything. Then we have also the software for the sales representative. Then we need also an accounting software, and there's the website, the documents, and everything. So our main issue here is, wait, how did those software talk to each other? Because if you have an order coming from the sales representative on field, then it has to go in our main software. the management software, so that we can see the numbers, we can see, oh, he ordered that amount of food, of steaks, and we have to get them ready for him at that date, etc., etc. So the main question is how we do that, and how can we transfer data between those main applications.
So each of these systems, the CRMs, the ERPs, they have their own databases?
So yes, indeed they have. So for example, the accounting software is working with SQL developer. What I meant saying, SQL Server from Microsoft. Yeah. The CRM, because it's on the field, it has a small SQLite database. And also another database, and I think it's, I don't remember, it might be MySQL or MariaDB or something like this. We don't really, that's part of the problem, we don't really have access to these databases, because when the software is managed by another company, you can't just say, hey, give me the database access, I want to take some things from you. Same for the website, it's not in our scope. We don't manage the website, we just hired a company to do so.
Okay, got it, thanks.
So, we come to ETL. What's that? Extract, transform, load. The main principle here is, first we extract data, then we do some transformation because the data won't match our own database, and then we load that data in our database, and we can finally work with it. So, for example, if I take data from the accounting software, I need to extract the data, I need to transform things, and then I will put it back in our main database, which is Oracle. Just something I forgot to mention is that the ERP is plugged on Oracle main database. So it's kind of our center here. The ERP software is where all the work should happen and where all the data should remain.
Got it.
So there are some constraints. For example, real time. When someone on the field takes an order, we need to get that order really fast, because sometimes it's for tomorrow or for I don't know, Friday he wants some French fries, so we need to get this really quick so our guys can then package the things and then send bringing to him the next morning. Sadly, sometimes we have control over the data format, sometimes we don't. For example, if the company that manages the CRM software wants to give you JSON, then you have to do with JSON. If he wants to give you CSV, you have to deal with it. There are also complex business rules, of course, because when a product comes, an order comes, for example, you have a price, you have a bunch of things, but you can't really trust the data that someone sends you like this. You have to check it, you have to do some kinds of verification or validation. Then, of course, high availability, because it's kind of the same as the real-time issue. If we don't get orders back in our systems, then there are hundreds of people that can't work because they have no orders to prepare, or our accounting people can't do the accounts and things like that.
And then you're getting yelled at.
Yeah, of course, I'm getting yelled at, because if it doesn't work for like 30 minutes, we are right away. They're calling and, oh, it's not working. We have no orders here. What the fuck? We can't work. And then, you know, it's like, if they don't work for an hour and we fix the problem, then they will have another an hour late, and they will all finish later. So it's kind of yeah.
Got to keep it up.
Yeah, gotta keep it up. And then, of course, we have multiple systems. Like we said before, the database aren't the same, formats aren't the same. Sometimes they send you data over SFTP. Sometimes you just have to call an HTTP link and get back the data yourself. Sometimes they don't bother. They say, okay, there's a shared directory here, and you just have to access it.
Sounds complex. A lot of variables here.
Yeah, there are lots of variables, but we can manage it pretty easily. So let's begin with this use case. Like I said before, the first point here is that sales representatives are taking an order on site. They are at the customer's place with their laptop and just doing, okay, what you want, French fries, okay, let's do this. Then they sync the data to 3G, so cell phones. What's done then between the synchronization and data exportation is kind of a black box. It's the other product. We don't have access to that. We just had a talk like this, and we said, yeah, we need that data. Please export the data to this directory, and we will handle it from there.
Okay.
This is the step 4. Do some work to get that data into our database. So then, of course, when the data is finally in our database, the ERP can access it, the warehouse gets the order, they prepare the order, and finally the order gets delivered back to the customer.
Got it.
So here, we have a fairly simple case. We have CSV data, and we want to get the data back into our Oracle. So, yeah, about data imports, when I said real time, you may think, oh wait, we have files, we will just watch the directory for changes, and we will get the data as soon as it gets there. But in fact, in real life, it's never so simple. If you do that, you may encounter problems with the network. For example, the networks go down, the files is half written, then you have half the data, and then everything breaks. So it's not really safe. So my advice here is really to use cron and to schedule stuff. Like if I know that the other application is sending the orders every 5 minutes, I know that I can put a cron every minute, and when the data is there, it's there. So it's like my second point, files must be fully written, because if you have a network issue, it happens all the time. Like you would say, oh, but no, we have good telecommunication between the field, and the cell phones are always working, and patati blah 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 blah. It's not the case. There are always issues, always. Like it's every day you get to micro shutdowns from the network, and when a file gets transferred over this, it just breaks. So
I've never had to deal with that before, and this may be off topic, but what happens if a file is halfway written, a CSV file, and then the network drops out? Do you still see that file when the cron job runs? Is it not going to see it?
So we have securities for this. For example, we say to the other party, for example, that gives us the CSV file, okay, first write it in a temporary directory, or I get it from you. So when I get the file, I write it first to a temporary directory. For example, with SCP, a command line SCP, get the file, bring it back. And then once if the call doesn't end or is broken at the middle, it will throw an error. And then we just say, okay, we didn't get the file. That's it.
Okay.
And we start all over again. So, and then when the file is in the temporary directory, then we move it back to the final directory, and then we know it's safe. We know the file is fully built.
Okay, got it.
This is the second sentence is about that. So, because we work with files and we use Node.js, then we kind of have to use streams because streams are great. So there is a quick code snippet here where I use a couple of modules. The first one combines streams. The second one is just a CSV reader stream. And this gives me the ability to work with many files. Like, for example, if we didn't get a file with the first one, everything, okay, we had an error, that's it. And we start back the next minute. So there might be more files. So because CSV is kind of easy to handle, we can put files together and then just stream once that whole data in the database. So to do this, I have like combined streams with create read streams that just reads the file, and then I pipe the streams to a CSV reader a module. This CSV reader is really a transform streams that takes the data and gives you back objects with you saw there. I just gave him the headers for my CSV file because I know them, and then it gives me data back. So yes.
So I heard you say transform stream, and I just thought, for the folks that may be joining us that aren't really familiar with Node, we might just say that in Node you have readable streams, which a file, a CSV file would be a good example. You have writable streams, and of course files are both read-write, so that's still a good example for a write stream. And then you have the transform streams, which is where you might be applying some kind of business logic. As data is moving through the stream, you may be reformatting it in some way.
Yeah, indeed. So I will get a bit more into the code there. So I prepared some tables for my database. Of course, it's not the full example because there are way many more columns there in real life. So the import orders table, I just need to get this a bit bigger. Can you read it? Yeah, it's not too small.
Not seeing any data.
Yeah, there are no data, but that's normal for now. So here I have we call them temporary tables, where we will just batch insert data we get from the CSV. We handle the transformations later in SQL because it's simpler for us. The most important part here is to get the data from the CSV file into our database, and then we don't care about it anymore. So to make this case a bit simple, I put a column products, quantity, packaging, currency, price. And then there's those two columns there, batch ID and batch date. Those both columns are really, they help us to track what data came in, when it came in, and how many batch jobs we did, like for during the day. And when we have an error somewhere, we can always get back to this temporary table and see, okay, this was our batch ID that went wrong, and we can see, okay, this was the product, why, and then get back to the file, etc., etc., to dig out where the problem came from.
Yeah, I wrote a note. I want to revisit that a little later. How you deal with issues that come up, hiccups in the process.
Yeah, of course. But it was also a bit complicated to show, like, yeah, I didn't want to get too much in the details of that.
Sure.
So I prepared some fixtures to load data. So I will just do just a reminder. I will get back CSV files and then import them back into the database. So I prepared something. Create import orders, please. Yes. Oh. Don't yeah. So this will create 3 files containing each 77 data. I don't know why it's just like this. So if I go see the data, here it is. So it's really random, the data, but it's kind of this format that we get from our providers or the other software. And then what we'll do with these three files there is that we will take them and insert them in the database. How do we do that? So I talked a bit about the streams before. Get just okay. So I don't know if you're all familiar with the term of glob, but it allows me to take multiple data, and it's like what this code does is simply data imports. Okay, it just takes these 3 files here. Then.
So I'm familiar with blob and clob, but not glob. It's essentially joining the files together?
Nope. Glob is really doing just the -L here. It's taking just a list of our 3 files.
Okay.
Really easy for now. And then we get the files back here at this line.
Got it.
If we have no data, of course, there's no reason to go further, so we just break from here. Here you can see I used a sequence from Oracle, and I take the next value. And this will get me back my batch ID. The batch ID that allows me to track further if something went wrong.
Gotcha. So actually, let me pause you here. So just going back to the top, so you're bringing in the driver at some point, the Oracle Database driver for Node.js.
I forgot that. I'm so sorry, I forgot that.
No worries.
What I'm always doing with Oracle, the module of Node.js, is that I'm always creating a small file that just does this. It requires the module, then take our configuration object, and I usually specify this the out format because I'm working with objects. Okay. And then all it does is to get back get connection. So
I see.
This is fairly simple, but you can handle more cases when you need to get a pool of connections. For example, I put the pool here, and then in my it keeps things simpler for when I'm working on scripts like this one.
This is your little, like a wrapper module for the driver.
Yeah, exactly. And then here I'm just calling Oracle, and I know I get the connection there.
You get a connection, right. Okay, yeah. I'm with you now.
So what's going on next? I take a sequence value, I combine the streams. Of course, I sort the files. I can just show you a bit logging there. For example, you ask me what the glob does get back. I will do that. This is on purpose, yeah. Don't do this. Then import orders. So glob just gets back an array of paths.
Got it.
Then I sort them because I want the date to be in the order, because when I concatenate them, I need to get the data in the right order. Sometimes we have, like, I don't know how this process is called, but sometimes we initialize the data, always initialize, but sometimes we do also updates. And when we do updates, timing is really important in the data process. So then there is our code back from the slides here. So CSV reader. And what I do with this is, so there are no writable streams in Oracle, I think. I didn't find any. So what I'm doing here is just that I'm putting promises in an array, and we call this function with every data that we get. So we get to inject function. So it's really straightforward, a simple insert in our database with the proper values. You can see here that I'm putting sysdate and the order current value that I updated before. This is the sequence.
Gotcha. And you're using bind variables, which is good.
Yeah, I'm always using bind variables. And for example, here, this is a really simple example, but I'm sanitizing the data. Sometimes the provider sends you strings, but you know there are no strings. There must be doubles, or I don't know what. And there I do some. This function in particular can get way more complicated when you get into real data. Then we just execute the function, and I like to do this this batch inserts. Like I have a variable here that says data count module batch insert equals null. This gives me the ability to write when I have 100 data, I can commit all the inserts, and it gets a bit faster and doesn't eat much memory, because when you're working with really many data, we have small data sets, but we have many of them, so I like it like this.
Gotcha. And
so
just a quick reminder to the audience, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to use the question portion of the GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar panel, and we'll just take them as they come in.
So the inserts are done in a batch, and they all return promises, which I then put in an array.
So for the folks that maybe aren't terribly familiar with JavaScript in general, what's a promise?
What's a promise? Yeah, a promise is simply, to me, it's a way to make asynchronous calls easier to sync and to read. Right. For example, here the glob function, this comes from a module. Yeah, it's this module here. The glob wasn't a promise, so usually in JavaScript, it's always like you have some arguments here, and then you get a callback function that will be executed when the job is done here. And the issue with this is when you got many calls like this, then you get in a callback hell, we call it that way, and it's kind of hard to read, hard to maintain, and etc. So promises gives me the ability to write, for example, if glob was a promise, I would skip the callback and then just do then, and then, oops, I would avoid writing ES6 JavaScript. And here, job is down. And what's good about this is that we can chain the promises. And for example, I can return another glob, just like this, and here
chain the then calls.
Chain the calls, exactly.
Yeah. Promises make async much easier than just callbacks alone. Okay.
But sometimes you see you still have to do a small hell of indentation when a promise needs to return a promise, etc.
Right.
Promise.all here is just taking an array of promises and wait until everything has been resolved. When this is down, I have inserted all my data, and then I just do this for leftovers, because up there I had to only commit when the data count is 200, but is a multiple of 100. And if, say, there were 150 data lines, then there would be leftovers here. Then after this, I close the connection. This is really, really important to do. I once forgot to close my connections, and I was doing a heavy pooling work, and we have a company that handles our servers, and they called me and they said, we have 100 sessions, Oracle sessions open. Well, why? I was like, I don't know. And in fact, I forgot to close my connections. Then this is just a small part where we archive the data, because when we process data, we always want to keep them just in case there were a problem, and we see it later because the data, you know, it's a flow of data. It goes, and then you get an issue, and the boss says, "Hey, can you look into it?" So you have to get back to the files.
Mm-hmm. So we have a couple questions coming in. Do you mind taking them?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
one of them is, we mentioned the batch ID. So you'll have a batch ID for every CSV file, and if so, will it be unique? And if not, how does that work?
Okay, so my batch ID is in fact per launches. When I launch this job, I will do it right away. So yeah, I processed all the CSV files, so we get here. Oops, wait for it. I did not write my file. Okay, inserted 231 data. So here I have data. You notice the batch ID is here 1, because I launched my dataset once. And in fact, all the CSV files are taken together, so it has treated 3 files, but in fact we only have 1 batch ID. But I will do the same example for example, I take 1 CSV file and 200 lines of data. Now I import those and order line. So here you can see the batch ID is now 2, and this was my second job.
Gotcha. Okay.
And the batch ID is only an Oracle sequence. Like here, when I start the job, I say order next one, and this will take the sequence to the next value. And then all I'm doing is using that sequence back with current value. A thing you have to know about sequences is that there can be gaps in sequences, but they will be unique.
Yeah. Accountants don't like gaps, but technologists know they are sort of a necessary evil. Okay.
I can show you simply how, we create sequences like this. So, yeah. Was there another question? I can't see the questions on my screen, so.
I'll sort of read them to you here.
Okay.
I'm sure you found some benefits of the Node.js approach over a more out-of-the-box approach like Oracle's SQL Loader. Could you talk about what problems you solved by moving to this approach?
So the fact is, I'm not only. It's never like just simple like this, and sometimes you have to find the data to get it back from SFTP or from an HTTP call or things like that. And this I know I can do with Node.js. I can control them and then do the imports myself through Node.js because I already got the files from there. And you know, Node.js asynchronous behavior is really great when you work with files. There's nothing easier than working with streams when you deal with files. Yeah, so it was the obvious choice to me.
Sometimes I think it also comes down to language and environment familiarity. For folks that maybe come from an Oracle background, very comfortable with SQL and PL SQL, it may make more sense to go that pure Oracle route. SQL loader in, packages to do your transformations and so on and so forth. But for folks that come from a JavaScript background, this is going to be a much more natural fit. And
yeah, indeed.
at the end of the day, just 2 different ways to do the same work?
And I'm not really an Oracle guy. I know my SQL things, so like kind of, yeah, like everyone, but I'm not, I would not take the risk of doing things with something I'm not sure to control, you know? So, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks for that question. Go ahead. Proceed.
Yeah, okay, okay. So what I will just do this quick. I want my data to be processed here. Up. So I just set up a cron for like my data will now process like when I keep doing the talk. So I will add a bunch of data there. So next we get back to the slides now. So another use case is when we need to export data. For example, our company decides to launch a new product. It's down in the ERP as always with the domain database. Now, our sales representative on the field, they have the laptop and they need to be aware that there are new products or what they must sell. So in this case, we have to take the data and send it back to them. So it's the same thing as before. We sync it via FTP or the HTTP or the whatever, and then they sync, and then they can present the new product. So to do this, we decided to do something that we may call database pooling, so that it would be actually in kind of real time. When we are always working with temporary data tables. I should have written tables here because we have our main table for products, but we never touch this table. Then when some lines gets inserted there, there's a trigger behind that fills a temporary table behind. What we can do then is just select count 1, and when that number we gave him is reached, then we can extract the data. So there I just did a kind of small script. I called it a job. We can call it a microservice too. And to handle this multiple, you can imagine that I don't have only one script. I have a bunch of those. And to handle those, we will use PM2. PM2 is the process manager I talked about earlier.
Can you maybe touch on PM2 a bit more? Why do we need PM2 if we're using Node.js?
Yeah, so I will get to that, okay?
Okay, perfect.
So this is really easier than before because you know what, the Node Oracle DB module has a readable stream. So a readable stream is just a stream that gets data and then you do whatever you want with it. For example, you can pipe it to a transform stream and then pipe it to a writable stream. This is exactly what's done here. So I'm using pump, but it's just for easier to read. It's just giving the streams back to everyone in the queue. So for example, here I get a readable stream from Oracle. I use a transform stream, CSV writer. This just transforms objects to CSV.
Very cool.
And then I create a writable stream for my CSV file. So let's show some code here. So just as before, I have a table here for my products. I will fill products in this table right now with my feature script. Node features, create me export products, please. So now I have a bunch of products. Here you can notice the batch ID is now null and the batch date too. Why is that? Because we didn't process any data. This is the data that came from the trigger. Okay? So now let's get to this code quickly. Export. Oh, shit. Okay, so when I process the data, so this, like before, it just instantiates a connection. And then before we use the data, we set batch ID to -1. Because when, say the script had some kind of exception somewhere and breaks in the middle, I want to be able to get back at the data that wasn't sent. And therefore, I need to do this to be safe. Then, of course, I watch if some rows are affected, and if they are, I can process it. This is really like before. We do. You can picture too that this script isn't aware that the trigger is running or something else. So when we do this update, when we set batch ID to -1, we can actually use this in our workflows here. This gives us the ability to know that the data is just static and we don't get data that just came or something like that. And then there is the streaming magic here, where we just read our connection streams, we pipe it to the CSV writer, and we write it back to the destination file. Destination file is just a CSV file. When we're done with that, we set the batch ID to our next value sequence. And we set up also a batch date, so we can get there after. Really straightforward. So I will just launch that script quickly, so I can talk about PM2 after. Oh, shit, it's export product. So it just exports my data, 123 lines. There you go. Oh, I have a bunch of those. Wait, I'm cleaning a bit. Get back some data. So here's our data, nice and clean. And this we can send back to the other company, and they process the data, and yeah, then our sales representative get back the products. So I also talked about polling. There are no questions, right? I can see questions.
There is one, so. Yes. Okay. It's from a little earlier, but I think it applies here perhaps as well. The code does insert, but if you have inserts and updates, does the use of promises open the door to synchronization issues, as in the updates occurring in the wrong order?
For example, I'm not sure to get it. For example, here.
I wouldn't say the promises. I could answer that one technically myself. The promises are not going to open up any doors to synchronization issues. When you have a promise and you're chaining these then calls, as we see in the code, it will execute in the order of the then calls. So as long as you write your code, in the correct order of operations, it'll flow in that way when executing. Okay.
So about polling, and then we get to PM2. So I have some script here that I called a watcher, because it watches for lines that gets written to my export table. And when we reach a certain number, I've put here 1,000, it will launch the export product job. So here the promises are a bit more complex because I'm wrapping everything in a function here, execute. This function will open a connection, execute the count 1, check if there is some data. If there is nothing to do, we do bluebird delay polling, then execute. This means that when we have nothing to do, we will just wait for 5,000 milliseconds, and then we'll execute that function back. And when we have some data, we do exactly the same thing. We first close the database connection. We don't need it anymore. We launch the script, and then we delay back and then execute. This means it will go in an infinite loop that's calling the same thing every 5 seconds. I won't get into the launch script because it's PM2. Yeah, I can show it, but it's a bit, it's not important. What the launch function does is it launches my script export products with PM2. So I will just go here. So you can see for before I put a cron in my cron tab there, I told him, yeah, do execute my import order script every minute or so. And in fact, it has been working since I'm talking there. So I will now just start my script. Oops, not in the right directory. I will start my watcher now. Oh shit. Okay, now you can see the watcher has been started, and he just logged nothing to do, null lines. Indeed, my table is now empty. You know, this table has no data with batch ID 2 - 1, so the count just gets back to null. So I will create more data now. I'll create more data. Create a bunch of those. So I told him to wait until there are 1,000 data. So here it just says to do on the right, yeah, nothing to do. I have only 300 lines. So let's give him a bunch more. Yeah, don't wait a second or so. Okay, you saw that everything there. So it just said starting export products, got 1,100 lines, and then it exported the data. And oops, sorry, I'm so sorry about this. I can do this again. And indeed, if I check that the export data is there, and I can see it has been written. So this is why I use PM2, because this way I can have every job I use. I have really a lot of them, and I can track them. Their logs are good, and I can launch them from my Node.js program. This means that, yeah.
So I can tell you're a command line ninja. I don't have
I'm
this
sorry.
skill set. The right hand side. What are we looking at here with these global logs and the process list?
Okay, so this is the PM2 monitor function. So it just opens a monitor where you can. This is only to show off, really. I never use this in my professional work, but yeah, it shows on the left side the process list. I can put it big. Is it big enough? I can put it like this. Yeah, on the left side you can see you have 3 processes here. So yeah, it just launched. So the watcher
I really
is
like
online.
this. Okay. So earlier I wanted to just mention to folks, in general, node processes, when they're running, they can be thought of as somewhat brittle, meaning that if an unhandled exception occurs, the process just dies, right? So the concept of process monitors and watchers came about, and I still use one that's kind of old school, you know. It's called Forever.js. I think it was one of the first ones.
Yeah. It was the first one, and then Alexander, so the guy who built PM2, wrote a blog article, and it was I don't remember anymore. No more forever. Welcome PM2.
So the idea here is instead of saying node and then my process, you're saying, you know, the PM2 or forever
PM2
and then the file.
Start, and then indeed PM2 starts my process. For example, this was the watcher process, and then it will run forever. Like if it exits for whatever reason, it will get restarted back.
Right.
But my script there, export product, I don't want him to be restarted. It's only a simple job that's executed and then it must exit.
Mm-hmm.
So for this, you can also say no auto restart.
So you still get the monitoring like with the global logs and such, I see.
Exactly. Just there I launched it and you saw it showed me that, yeah, export products was online and yeah. But if now I say PM2 list and yeah, it stopped now because of course it exited and I told him, yeah, don't restart please.
That's very cool.
So you can see there, I'm just clearing my screen. I can create imports, orders, so a bunch of files, bunch of data. So if now you have to picture that those two commands that I just launched are things that are done from other softwares. They are creating data. It can be CSV, it can be from a database, and then my PM2 is doing all the job. Or also I have a count-out schedule, of course, for things that I want to get started like this, and then I just don't have anything to do anymore. I just have to watch, and yeah, and I can track my logs and can track my errors and such.
Very cool. We do have a couple questions in the queue, so let's see here. Is PM2 something you would use in production, or should any persistent node servers be run as, say, Linux system D service?
I'm using PM2 in production, indeed, because it's really stable, and you know, yeah, I'm a command line hacker, so I know that all my logs are here. I don't have to care about where the logs go. I just know, okay, they will get in this directory, and then yeah. And you know, you can also plug into PM2, and where script errors, you can get back an email and things like that. And it really makes my life easier every day. I can see
telling me.
For example, here you can see I just did a PM2 list, and I know there's a current restart. And I can see there, okay, my script restarted 3 times. This is not normal, you know, or the uptime or memory usage, etc.
I love the global log feature, the monet feature, because in Forever, when I do a Forever list, it tells me where the log files are, and I can tail those. But it's a more manual process. This sort of live updating is great.
This, for example, the PM2 monet command is great when you're developing something, because you can always have a full view of your microservices and what they are doing.
I love it. Very cool. Another question. Actually, this is several questions rolled into one. So, how much data can be streamed? Will the code need to be executed on the database or require a separate server? So let's start with those two. As far as how much data can be streamed, you can stream any amount of data.
Gigabytes. You can stream as much as you can, yeah.
When you're using the driver, there's various methods you can use to interact with the database. So one method is execute. And when you execute a query, it's going to get you back a result set. Now, obviously, that's not going to be good if you're ingesting a large quantity of data, because it's going to want to do it all in one shot. And you may not have enough memory in your node server to process all that. So that's where the idea of this stream comes into play. So this line that he has highlighted here is another method called query stream. And this is going to be a read consistent view of the data. And then it allows you to just stream it over in smaller bytes according to the fetch size that you can toggle in the driver.
And it won't eat memory. That's really important.
Yeah.
Like the memory will keep stable. I can do. So, for example, I can say, you would think I'm crazy, but I will just give him 100,000 lines of the database. Okay. Let's do this. It will take some time, of course. but the script will handle this just fine. I mean, we won't even see the memory go much higher.
Well, that's
yeah, we can wait for the result, of course.
Yeah, well, that's loading. I'll keep going in this question.
Yeah.
So regarding the separate server, generally speaking, folks are going to want to run Node on a separate server. You do incur the cost of the network transfer, but I think folks feel generally more secure having Node and other application servers run on a separate server from their database.
Oh yeah, of course.
If it's on a data warehouse database, will it impact other users running reports on the same database while data is being loaded? Thinking more from an implementation perspective, I couldn't imagine any impact on other folks working with the data. Generally speaking, with Oracle, readers don't block writers, and writers don't block readers, so there shouldn't be any negative impact there.
When you do have impact, you know you will, sometimes it's just like that, you have an impact. Just don't launch heavy jobs when they are working. Launch them at night, for example, if you can.
Gotcha. Very cool. All right. Did it finish? It did.
yeah, it did finish. So, oh shit, sorry. I think just waiting a bit, but or maybe did export the data. Yeah, it's running right now, I think. Yeah, we'll just wait for the results.
And we don't see any CPU usage in the process list.
Yeah, indeed, we don't.
Is the watcher the one that's actually bringing the rows or writing them to the file?
No, the watcher is only polling the database, doing the count, and then where there are some data, it should launch export products.
So we won't see the process that's actually writing the file in this list?
No, I don't think we will.
Okay.
I think it's running right now. Yeah, we'll just wait. I wanted to show last thing really quick. So I said it before, but sometimes the file company gives you any format. And for example, I use CSV here. But when you're using JSON, for example, there are a bunch of transform streams. You really need to look it up on NPM. And for example, here, I just take my readable stream, and instead of using CSV writer, I'm using Stringify. And there, I just had JSON. I changed a line of code and 10 characters, and I've got myself JSON. So this is really great. The system, readable streams and transform streams are really good to do things like this.
Very nice. And you could, of course, write your own streams if you don't find any in NPM.
Indeed. We had to write one. We have some data that is an old text format where it's spaced. You know, every data takes the same amount of space in the file. For example, 10 spaces or 10 characters, and the next one gets 30 characters. So you have a schema, and you have to play with this. And indeed, we have a transform streams that just does this. So it's great.
Perfect.
Yeah, I can, just to go further a bit, so in this talk, I just went straight forward on the subject, and there are many more things you can do, like manage transformation, validation via schemas, job concurrency, when you have data that can be processed at the same time, it happens, dynamic scheduler, for example, instead of using cron. Handle the archives. When you have a really bunch of them, you need to know where to put it, where to back up them, etc. Read, write from another server, from another data warehouse. Of course, keep statistics about the tasks, and of course, you mentioned last time we spoke to each other that there's an Oracle continuous query notification that helps polling database in real time. So this is not polling, this is really real time. to get the data as it goes.
We're sort of out of time for today, but maybe we can talk about that in a future CodeTalk.
Of course. So I just put this here for a reference of the modules I use there. So yeah.
Excellent. Well, that was great. Thank you very much, Soyuka. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to share with us some of what you've been up to.
My pleasure.
And you sold me on PM2. I'm gonna have to convert as soon as possible. And you said you actually contribute to that project, right?
To PM2, yeah. I still contribute to it. Yeah, I must be in the top contributor on the project, I think.
Excellent. So one of the people with us, they said they sold them on PM2 as well.
Okay. I sold them PM2, yeah. That's great.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll hope to see you in a future CodeTalk. Till then, take care.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Take care, Soyuka.
Thanks for being with us, guys.
Appreciate it. It was fun.